All right, we're going to try this again. It looks like I actually have audio. It's what it appears to be. All right, Brad Evans back again. Third time is indeed the charm with this. That's week 8. I'm here to answer your questions. Unfortunately, I have to do more of an abbreviated version because we got Fantasy Football Live coming up at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time on Yahoo Sports, 8:30 a.m. Pacific. Yes, we do have sound. All right, we are finally ready to go. Had to reboot the old classic force quit shutdown, reinvigorate the machinery, and we are good to go. So I'm going to answer as many of your questions as possible. Again, just to run through a few injuries. Allen Robinson, unlikely to play. Oh, we got a touchdown pass. Go Dirt! In the end zone from Carson Wentz as the Eagles take the lead 10-6 over the Jacksonville Jaguars. Probably still partying from the other night. Barry Church and company there after the exorbitant bill that they got stuck with in London. But Allen Robinson, unlikely to play. Even if he is a surprise active, he should not be on your roster. Windy conditions expected in Chicago. Gusts as high as 40. Sustained winds 15 to 25 miles an hour with some rain. Khalil Mack, even if he does play, he's going to be limited. Bears should be able to handle the Jets, but a couple of news and notes there. I think it's going to be a heavy Jordan Howard game, potentially Taylor Gabriel as well, though Trubisky has been the #1 quarterback in fantasy the last 3 weeks in a row in terms of overall fantasy points per game production. As far as Monday goes, LaShawn McCoy is past concussion protocol, expected to be in the lineup for the Buffalo Bills, back end RB2 in a bye-heavy week. Gronk should play, all indications suggesting he will suit up, and he has terrorized the Buffalo Bills in his career. Definitely fire him up with confidence, though he could be limited in some capacity. Sony Michel, doubtful. Kenyon Barner looks like he's going to start alongside James White. Barner, a guy that's worth a flex option if you're desperate for an RB2 in a 12-team or deeper league. You can plug him in as the Bills rank 9th in terms of most fantasy points allowed to the running back position. Richard Sherman expected to play for San Francisco today. Doesn't diminish my exuberance for Christian Kirk, a player who's lining up outside, whether left or right or in the slot, pretty evenly across the season. I think he could still take advantage in that particular matchup there. Elsewhere, that's about it. Marlon Mack, a good shot, according to Ian Rappaport, that he is going to play. So I would definitely fire him up with supreme confidence there. Let's see. And Xavier Rhodes, we got some information there. Is expected to play. So a major shot in the arm for the Minnesota Vikings. Though, even with Rhodes on the field, the Vikings giving up north of 8 yards per attempt on the season vertically to the pass. So something to keep in mind there. All right, let's actually answer some of your questions here. Nick St. Martin says, Mark Ingram or Jordan Howard, coming from Facebook. I'm definitely going to go with Jordan Howard there. You look at the Minnesota Vikings, they're allowing like 3.7 yards per carry, the running back position. Linval Joseph has been a man-eater in the trenches for much of the season. Ingram, a guy that, of course, is in a timeshare backfield with Alvin Kamara. It's going to be a similar outcome, I think, for him as he had last week against the Baltimore Ravens. So I would go with Jordan Howard. You look at the Jets giving up 4.1 yards per carry. I think it should be, again, tentative word here, should be a balanced approach to the Bears today against those puddle jumpers from New York. I think Howard's got a good shot at, say, 70 yards and a score. Let's see. A lot of questions coming in fast and furious. Aox says, Josh Gordon or Taylor Gabriel? For me, I'm going to go with Taylor Gabriel. Again, given the blustery conditions along Lake Michigan, some of the rain as well, it could be a dink and dunk type of performance for Mitchell Trubisky, which can only benefit Gabriel. Again, without Robinson, unlikely to play. Even if he does, just could be a cameo here or there. I think Gabriel, a guy that's very effective in the short field on crossing routes and slants in the screen game. I would expect Matt Nagy to dial up some of those plays to try to get him in space, allow him to create and stretch the field as best he can without really chucking it beyond, say, 30 yards or so, knowing that the winds could be a factor there occasionally throughout the game. All right. Kenneth says, Big Ben or Tom Brady? This is an embarrassment of riches. I'm going to go with Ben Roethlisberger against Cleveland. The Browns, you look at what they have allowed so far this season in terms of overall fantasy points to the quarterback position. Middle of the pack, 18th most, giving up 7 yards per attempt. But they have given up a healthy amount of yards. In fact, the Browns have allowed the 5th most pass yards to the position. 9 total touchdowns just in 7 games. But I think Roethlisberger, it's home cooking, man. I would not be surprised if he goes for 300, couple of scores. That's typically what he does at Heinz Field. And, of course, given all the emotions, that are going to be coursing through the veins of the people there rallying around this team in light of recent events, I think Roethlisberger, is going to have a fine performance, much like Pittsburgh as a whole today. So I would definitely go with Big Ben there. Let's see what else we got coming in. Drock says Ebron or Olsen in a PPR. I'm going to go with Eric Ebron there. Again, guy that's been a centerpiece in terms of receptions inside the red zone, typically finding the end zone. It's the Raiders, for crying out loud. You can move the ball vertically, you can move the ball on the ground. They're giving up 4.88 yards per carry on the ground. I think Ebron, wants to get in the red zone. I think there are going to be a lot of opportunities there. Andrew Luck, number 1 among all quarterbacks, as a matter of fact, in total red zone attempts, I think will connect with Ebron for 6 in that game. Fred says Breeze or Trubisky. In light of the conditions in Chicago, I'd probably be inclined really to go with Drew Brees. Even with Xavier Rhodes back, it's on a fast track in the Dome. Over-under in that game set at 53 in some locations. Could be a shootout affair with the primetime lights. I like Brees quite a bit, so I go Drew Brees here over Trubisky's. Tim says, I lost you, Tim. It's just so fast. This thing is moving right now. A lot of questions coming in. Chris says Chubb or Howard in a PPR. I'm going to go with Jordan Howard. Look, I think Nick Chubb is going to be humbled in this game. The Pittsburgh Steelers allowed the second fewest fantasy points to the running back position on this season. Nick Chubb has been tremendous. I mean, he's number 1 in elusive rating, number 1 in yards after contact per attempt, number 1 in missed tackle percentage among all eligible running backs, and his yak per attempt is like 6.85. It's by a wide margin over the number 2 in that category. He's going to be a beast down the stretch. It's one of the easiest fantasy schedules remaining, but he's got to get past this week, and I think the Steelers really contain him. I got him less than 75 yards, no touchdown for Chubb. So I would definitely go with Jordan Howard there. I think there's more TD appeal overall. Clevois was Diggs and somebody else. Just to answer your Diggs question, I like Stephon Diggs quite a bit. I think he's going to be a top 15 option. I mean, look at the New Orleans Saints, clearly have struggled in coverage most of the season. So I think the appropriate play here is, fire up all your Vikings that are vertical options, with the exception of maybe Laquan Treadwell, for example. But you look at the New Orleans Saints specifically and what they have allowed, pulling up the metrics as we speak. Like Marshawn Lattimore is given a 117.5 passer rating. P.J. Williams mans the slot primarily, 146.4 passer rating, 1.66 yards per snap. Ken Crawley, 154.8 passer rating as well. And Crawley, I saw an injury note on him. Let's see if I can pull that up just to verify if he is even going to be active. He's going to be inactive. So Eli Apple, who just came over via trade, is going to start over Ken Crawley. Eli Apple's been good, but, I mean, how much of the scheme does he really know? Yeah, that's a bit of a shocker. So I love Kirk Cousins tonight. I think he's going to feast under the primetime lights there. Let's see. Bryce says Jordan Howard or Kerryon Johnson. Now here I would go Kerryon Johnson. Again, I'm glad that Matt Patricia finally, the light flipped on in the attic for him in regards to getting Kerryon the football. Kerryon's just been beasting. I mean, he's an excellent 3-down running back, explosive off the edge, getting some of those tough yards between the tackles as well. Appreciable numbers in yards after contact per attempt. You look at the matchup, Seattle's actually been pretty good against the run this season. Specifically, the Seahawks are giving up, and I'm pulling it up right now. Seattle giving up 4.01 yards per carry, only 4 rushing touchdowns in 6 games, 18th most, so middle of the pack in terms of fantasy points allowed, but at home, I like Kerryon Johnson quite a bit. I think he's a very firm, high-end RB2 in 12-team leagues this week. Man, a lot of Jordan Howard questions galore. Again, I've got Howard. Just give you some perspective on where I have him ranked specifically, and I'm pulling that up as well. So Howard, I have right now at RB18. So some players around him. I had Kenyon Drake at RB19. Of course, he exceeded expectations there. If you have to decide between Raheem Mostert and Howard, I have Mostert one spot ahead. Yes, Matt Breida is expected to play, but he's going to limp off, probably like 5 minutes into the game. I've got Kerryon Johnson a couple of spots ahead at RB15. I got Nick Chubb behind Jordan Howard there. Got Tariq Cohen 2 spots behind him. Latavius Murray 3 spots behind him. So that kind of gives you some perspective on where I have Howard in the pecking order. Again, very firm RB2, whether you're in half-point PPR or standard. I think there's a really good shot for him to get 70 yards and a touchdown. All right, some Phillip Lindsey questions rolling in as well. I see there was a flex option there for Lindsey. There's another one with Lindsey. I've got Phillip Lindsey as a top 10 running back this week, folks. If you have Phillip Lindsey, here are the exceptions of where I don't start him. If you own Todd Gurley, Kareem Hunt, Saquon Barkley, Joe Mixon, James Conner, Alvin Kamara, David Johnson, Adrian Peterson, that's it. Everybody else, Phillip Lindsey has the advantage over him. And you look at the Kansas City Chiefs, 5.1 yards per carry allowed to the running back position, 3rd most fantasy points allowed to the running back position. Even if this game is going to go negative, and it's going to, because the Broncos are probably going to lose by 20 to 30 points, Lindsey is going to have a role in the pass game. He's explosive. They're creative with him, unlike they are with Royce Freeman. Royce isn't playing. You got to follow the volume. You got to follow the matchup. He is impervious to deficit. So I think he's going to go out there, get at least 100 combined yards and a touchdown. Start Phillip Lindsey with supreme confidence today. All right? Period. End of story there. Flex option from Chris Thompson or Geronimo Allison. Another player that's back in the lineup is Allison. I like Geronimo quite a bit. I think this game's got a lot of shootout appeal. It's a hefty over-under, well above 50, according to Sin City right now. Specifically, it's sitting at 57.5 at some locations. It's going to be a heavy dose of Aaron Rodgers vertically this afternoon. And Geronimo Allison, I mean, top 36 wide receiver, went on the field. He's been a top 10 guy in terms of yards after the catch. Sizable yards per target, working outside against this Rams defense, which has surrendered some big plays and a lot of friendly fantasy production across the board. I could see Allison going for, 70 yards, maybe 80 yards and a touchdown. Believe it or not, his betonline.ag over-under on yardage data as far as a player prop at -114 is 49.5. Daddy hammered it because you look at Sam Shields, 128.4 pass rating allowed, 1.78 yards per snap. Marcus Peters, 133.6, 1.34 yards per snap. All those things. I mean, it's just, pile it together, do some easy number crunching, and the arrow points certainly to Geronimo Allison there. Somebody asking about Randall Cobb. Randall Cobb, questionable, expected to play. I'm definitely more confident Geronimo Allison between those two guys returning the lineup for the Green Bay Packers. Steven says Traquan or Chris Godwin in a half-point PPR. I love Traquan. Even with Xavier Rhodes back, the way that he is being deployed and utilized, I mean, he'll line up outside on occasion, but he sees a lot of snaps in the slot for the New Orleans Saints. And who is the slot man primarily for Minnesota? It's Mackenzie Alexander, who's given up 2.02 yards per snap. That's top 12 most allowed in that category according to Pro Football Focus. So I like the matchup there for Traquan. I love the size. I love the speed combination. I love the fact they played nearly 80% of the snaps last week. You pull that all together, and again, I mean, it could be 60-plus in a score. I got him 5 for 66 and a touchdown. That's what I fearlessly forecasted, and I'm sticking to that. I love Traquan Smith this week. I think he's easily a top 30 play. And a game that, again, you want to start most of your options, with the exception of some of the running backs in that contest between the Saints and the Vikings. N8 Grill said, what was my thoughts on Chris Carson? Chris Carson I have at RB12 this week. Very confident in Chris Carson, as a matter of fact. I think, coming off the bye week, you get the Lions, 6.02 yards per carry allowed, 6th most fantasy points allowed to the running back position. They're going to feed him. Mike Davis will be sprinkled in there. Rashad Penny will be sprinkled in there as well. But I think Chris Carson's going to get the lion's share of the touches against Detroit. And, based on the matchup, based on the fact that he's one of 4 running backs, that's top 10 in yards after contact per attempt, top 10 in yards created per carry, top 10 in elusive rating. As long as Pete Carroll, masticating his gum there on the sideline, if he comes to his senses and feeds Carson, I think he's going to get a good shot at maybe 100 yards and a touchdown. So yeah, I'm trotting out Chris Carson with supreme confidence today. Kenny says Chubb or Crowell. I go with Nick Chubb there. Even though the Bears could be limited with Khalil Mack, there's still a lot of talent on this defense. They're still very difficult to run on. So I would go with Nick Chubb, and hopefully he'll trip and fall in the end zone for you. We're getting some additional questions on Matt Breida. Good luck, trusting him. I would not at all trust Matt Breida today. It's the mother of all matchups. Arizona's allowed the most fantasy points to the running back position, but that dude is one misstep away from exiting stage left, and it's just Raheem Mostert left, right, up the middle in the pass game all day long. I mean, Breida is also, there's no guarantee he's going to play. The expectation is, but there's a shot that he could be a late scratch. So I think it's just too risky, especially you have a crutch to lean on there. All right, let's see. Carlos says Galladay or Geronimo. I actually go Geronimo there. I think Kenny Galladay is going to struggle a little bit. You look at Seattle, they rank inside the top third of the league in fewest fantasy points allowed to the wide receiver position. They're giving up just 6.8 yards per attempt, 10.9 yards per catch. Kenny G's been great. He's averaging 77.5 yards per game, but I mean, I don't think he's going to find the end zone. Got down for 4 for 73 and no touchdown. I think there was more touchdown upside for Geronimo Allison in a game in which Aaron Rodgers may have to chuck it 50 times. So that's a direction I'd lean there. I saw a question, Josh Gordon or Demaryius Thomas. That's a tough one because DT's got the matchup, but you worry about the trade rumors that have swirled around him all week. What kind of mental burden has that, has it taken a toll on him? I actually go with Josh Gordon. You worry about Tre'Davious White, who's been phenomenal in coverage. And to give you specifics on exactly what Tre'Davious White has allowed this season, I mean, he's been outstanding across the board there. He is giving up, drum roll, 94.7 passer rating, 0.56 yards per snap. That's it. 12. He's been targeted 21 times, given up 12 catches, only 1 touchdown on the year. But I think Gordon, he's going to find the end zone. I got him for 4 for 57 and a score. So for me, give me Josh Gordon by a hair in that dilemma there. All right, let's get a few more questions here. I'm going to try to rapid fire because unfortunately I'm going to get on set here shortly. Barber or Thompson, I saw a question there. I go Chris Thompson. Ronald Jones's role is starting to grow a little bit, and bit by bit every single week. So for me, I want to go the other direction there. Chris Thompson, just hope he stays on the field and is healthy the entire time. Don Kamuna says Gordon or Howard. I think that's what it was in a flex. I'm going to go with Jordan Howard. Bryce says Murray or Lockett. Give me Tyler Lockett there. Let's see. Big Ben or Winston from Justin. I got Big Ben there all day long. Let's see. Dallas says Mack or John Brown. Oh, man, that's a tough one. I really like John Brown quite a bit, but I'm going to go with, I believe, the guaranteed volume and workload in a very friendly matchup. Again, Oakland giving up 4.88 yards per carry to the running back position. Give me Marlon Mack. I saw a Kittle versus Gronk question. I've got George Kittle, believe it or not. Again, there's a little bit of hesitation about Gronk because of his general health. You worry about the game script, does it get out of control? I saw another question there about Njoku and Gronk. I go Njoku. I think some of those other guys, more of a bird in hand option there. Somebody's saying, hey, Brad, wear a hat. Okay, I can do that. There's a hat. I got it on. Your wish is my command. So that's exactly what I'm providing to you, the people, because I'm an ambassador to the lovelies here on this social media stream. Phillip says Ingram or David Johnson. You're definitely going David Johnson. Byron Leftwich, I think, is really going to open up this offense. They're going to get creative in using David Johnson, getting outside the tackle box, lining him up outside as a receiver. Maybe some action in the slot occasionally as well, putting him in motion. And, at San Francisco, you look at the 49ers and what they've allowed. 8th most fantasy points. They've only given up 4.01 yards per carry, but a ton of total yardage to RBs on the year. So definitely get David Johnson in your lineup. Mike says Funchess, Tate, or Godwin. I'm going Golden Tate, please. Let's see. Getting a ton of Mostert questions. Again, Mostert I've got as a top 20 running back, folks. He had 4.1 yards after contact per attempt last week. Despite being of small stature, he reminds me a lot of Phillip Lindsey. He's a guy that is an excellent one-cut running back. He's explosive in the open field. He was a track star for Purdue in the Big Ten. He's a player that, he's bounced around, but, he's made the most of his opportunities. Gone over 70 combined yards in back-to-back games. In Arizona, again, giving up 4.55 yards per carry. 180 plus total yards per game, most fantasy points. I think you got to maximize the matchup, go with Mostert, even on 12 to 14 touches. And that might be underselling him depending upon what happens with Breida. He's somebody that could definitely go out there and get the job done. Let's see. Sean says Richard or Djax. I like Jalen Richard. And there was another question about Jalen Richard or Michael Crabtree. Look at Indianapolis. They're giving up 7.1 receptions per game, 54.5 receiving yards per game to running backs alone. So this is a game you would think it's going to go negative for the Colts. They're or not for the Colts, for the Raiders. They're underdogs, pretty large underdogs in this particular contest. Could be a lot of dink and dunk from Derek Carr to Jalen Richard. He's seen 6.2 targets per game. So again, I think you got to look at that matchup. You got to feel confident about it, especially if you're in a half-point or greater PPR league, to roll with that. All right, a couple more questions, and I got to roll. Ben says, Cam Newton or Luck? I'm going Andrew Luck. Cam Newton, not 100%. Worst matchup on paper, as the Ravens allowed just 6.1 yards per attempt and the fewest fantasy points to the quarterback position. I'm seeing is Kenyon Barner worth a start? Yes. If you're in a deeper league, I think there's a good shot there for 50 to 60 yards and a touchdown. Again, the Buffalo Bills inside the top 10 in terms of most fantasy points allowed to the running back position. And last question here from let's get a good one. Let's see. The Raging Bulls, Kerryon Johnson or Michael Crabtree in a PPR. I like the matchup for Crabtree on paper against Carolina. I think it's going to be more of a John Brown game. I go Kerryon. Again, I usually side with the guaranteed volume. I know Seattle's been tough in the trenches, but Kerryon, he can get you a couple of catches. I think he's got to get 15 or so carries. I think he's got to find the end zone as well, unless, it's nothing but, within 5 yards of the goal line and it's LeGarrette Blount left up the middle and he poaches him. But I think Kerryon will get the job done overall. All right. Sorry for the technical difficulties. My apologies. Apparently, I just had to reboot my system. Sometimes you just got to hit the old restart button. And if you want to try to restart on your week 8, Fantasy Football Live, the Halloween episode, our favorite episode of the entire year. We're all going to be dressed up in costume. We're not in monkey suits on like ESPN and some of these other sites where they're talking about fantasy in a suit and tie. We have fun on our program. Andy Behrens and I are going to be going head-to-head with our costumes. So you're going to have to try to vote for which one's better. You can hit us up at Andy Behrens at Yahoo Noise. And there's the beard once again. As kind of giving you just a taste of what you're going to see on FFL. Wonderful teaser, Behrens. So we'll see you shortly on yahoosports.com. Peace.